Okay, let's just jump right in. We're going to explore a career philosophy that starts with a pretty challenging idea, one that, let's be honest, most of us try to run away from. It's all about finding power in a place where we're told we have none.
So, the source material for this kicks off with this incredibly blunt, almost shocking statement. I am a cog. This isn't a cry for help. For the person we're talking about today, an employee at a big manufacturing company, this was just the starting point, a cold, hard fact to build a career on.
And right there, that's the huge mindset shift we're diving into. How do you take that label, cog, which sounds so replaceable, so insignificant, and actually turn it into a strategic advantage? Well, it all begins by just accepting reality.
Now, to really get his strategy, we first have to understand the world he was operating in. And look, this isn't about one specific company. This is about the universal, unspoken truths of working inside any large, complex organization.
These are the rules of the game, right? The company isn't your family. It's not there to protect you. There's always a plan for who could take your spot. And maybe the toughest pill to swallow, how your performance is perceived and explained up the chain often matters way more than the actual results. Facing these truths leads most people to a major crossroads in their career. And that crossroads typically leads people down one of two paths. Both seem pretty tempting on the surface, but both are traps. They're the most common reactions to corporate life, and you know what? They almost always fail.
And you can see how these are really just two sides of the exact same coin, fear. On one side, you have the hoarder. This is the person who makes their work so complex and personal that no one else can do it. They think they're indispensable, but what really happens is they become isolated. People start working around them. On the other side, you've got the ghost. This person just accepts that their job is generic. They fade into the background, becoming so easy to replace that eventually they are.
But the guy we're talking about, he rejected both of those extremes. He didn't want to be the isolated hero, and he definitely didn't want to be the invisible worker. He created a whole new strategy, one built not on being loud and irreplaceable, but on being quiet and resilient.
So the big question is, how did he do it? He lived by a set of 10 personal rules for thriving as a cog. We're going to break them down into 3 main areas.
So, the first batch of rules is all about defining your work on your own terms. It's about finding out where your real leverage is and how you build your identity inside that huge corporate machine. His first major insight was that real power, at least in his kind of role, things like procurement and quality control, it wasn't in managing a team of people. It was in completely mastering the flow of the work itself.
This is just brilliant. He wasn't hoarding information. He basically became the human API for complicated processes. He mapped out how things actually got done, not just what the official manual said. He documented all that tribal knowledge, the unwritten rules, and he made himself the go-to person for any time things went off script. The end result? It wasn't that the job couldn't be done without him, but that doing it would suddenly become a whole lot harder and more time-consuming for everyone else.
Look, every job has those moments where you're asked to do something ethically gray. Instead of making a big, righteous scene, he just established a firm, quiet boundary. He understood that how you say no is just as critical as the no itself. And this is so key. There was no drama, no big lectures, just a calm, persistent refusal to cross his own line. He'd often just insist on a paper trail or propose the proper alternative way. Over time, this built an incredible reputation for integrity. He just became known as the guy who wouldn't bend on certain principles. He saw a fundamental truth. Companies are always changing. CEOs come and go, mission statements get rewritten, org charts are always in flux, but the core function of his role, ensuring quality, maintaining supply chains, that was constant. His loyalty was to doing that job right, no matter who was sitting in the corner office.
So this personal philosophy didn't just stay in his head. It completely guided how he interacted with everyone, from the suppliers on the factory floor to the executives at headquarters. And this chart just illustrates his method perfectly. He systematically replaced emotion and arguments with pragmatism and problem solving. With suppliers, he'd focus on their challenges. With subcontractors, he'd give them a way to be honest about mistakes without getting crucified. And with headquarters, he never argued with anger. He only argued with data.
The final set of rules. This is where we go beyond the daily tasks and into a whole philosophy for life. It's about what you prioritize and what kind of legacy you're actually leaving behind, both at work and at home.
His focus was always on the fundamentals. He took on the unglamorous work,
the stuff like safety and quality, because he believed that doing the right thing eventually pays off on the balance sheet. For his family, he provided a stable foundation so they could chase their own dreams. His financial goal wasn't to get rich and win, but to build an escape fund so he can never lose. And the stories he passed down weren't about his own triumphs, but about the lessons he learned from watching others fail.
So what does this all add up to? Well, it's a completely different definition of success, one that the source material calls the pride of a cog. This is the absolute core of it all. It's not about denying reality. It's about accepting the fact that, yes, you are replaceable, and then working so intelligently, so quietly, and so consistently that the cost of actually replacing you becomes very, very high.
This really was his legacy. He wasn't a hero. He never saved the company in some single dramatic moment. His pride came from something much deeper, the quiet, profound dignity of just being utterly reliable. He was the cog that never, ever broke.
And that's really the question this whole philosophy leaves us with, isn't it? In a world that often rewards the loudest voice in the room, what's the real value of being the quiet, essential component that just allows the entire machine to run smoothly? It's a different kind of ambition, for sure. And maybe, just maybe, it's a much more resilient one.